Now, it seems like every week, a child is sent home with a list of sight words, expecting to have these words memorized over the weekend. Now, you may have seen a similar list sent home with your child, and even sat down with them to help them through the list before they were drilled on Monday. Now, have you ever questioned whether this was an effective way to teach your child to read? If you have, your intuition has served you well, and you'll soon find out that your gut feeling is right on the money. So why is this list being stuffed into your child's backpack every Friday afternoon? Well, the same reason I did it for years when I was teaching kindergarten. I was told to do it, and I was told this was going to help them read faster. But over the years, I started to question why we were memorizing these words at face value. See, at that time, I was using a program that referred to a list of 72 sight words as tricky words. Now, the idea being that the trickiness comes from their flagrant disregard for phonics and traditional spelling rules. We just have to accept that they are nasty little troublemakers and memorize them for what they are. Well, it turns out that 90% of those so-called tricky words can be sounded out and decoded with phonics. There was nothing tricky about them. Now, most teachers would never dream of questioning it. For many, it's above their pay grade to rock the boat anyway. That's just the grim reality of the education system today. But you and I are about to break free from that nonsense and help your child learn sight words in a dynamic new way that feels way more stable, permanent, and highly dependable. By the end of this discussion, you will be beaming with confidence, knowing how to commit words to memory in a way that guarantees success without the flashcard drills, without the boredom, and a worksheet soaked in tears. Now, the first order of business. Many educators are interchanging two terms that are very different from each other, and we need to clear this up right now. A sight word is any word that is committed to memory and can be instantly recalled on sight while reading. A high-frequency word is a word seen most often in print. Words like and, the, pronouns like he, she, and they, and prepositions like in, on, up, and so on. Now imagine how smooth the reading becomes when high-frequency words become sight words. But there is more to it than that. See, picture yourself side by side with your child as they read a passage of text out loud. They're just cruising along, they're doing great, until they hit a word they haven't memorized. Two things are bound to happen next. The first is that they'll look up and expect you to tell them what the word is. After you tell them, they might repeat it once or twice and hope they remember how it looks the next time they see it. Or they may guess a word that looks pretty darn close, but then the whole context falls apart. Comprehension takes a nosedive. Now, this is not how reading works. So just to be clear here, I'm not bashing sight words. Fluent, smooth reading can never be achieved without drawing from a warehouse full of useful sight words tucked away in our heads. I mean, heaven forbid they're still sounding out every word when they get to high school. So why are schools pushing so hard with all this memory work? Well, assuming that the list of sight words sent home with your child is in fact high-frequency words. Now, if there are 10 words on that list and they memorize all 10, their progress is neatly presented as a tangible score of 10 out of 10. It's progress that's easy to measure and quantify. They come away knowing 10 new words. Hey, bravo! Now let's hope they remember all 10 of them 3 or 4 weeks down the road. See, teachers and parents thrive on measurable progress, and I get it, but learning isn't as linear and predictable as you think. Now, as you can see, you were right to trust your gut, and this is not the best way forward. Never fear, a solution is here. This is some next-level secret agent spy stuff. See, my dad was really into those old-time war movies, especially the ones where you had to crack the enemy's secret code and discover their nefarious plot for world domination. Now, what they spent half the movie looking for was something called a cipher. The cipher was the key to knowing what each letter or symbol in the code represented. Learning to read is exactly the same thing, minus the sinister plot to blow up an orphanage or something. But humans invented a way to represent sounds that were spoken, and they created a code. In English, we use letters. The ancient Egyptians used pictures, hieroglyphics. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as enough people agreed on it and it was consistent. So when your child comes across the word cat, you can simply tell them what the word is, They'll hopefully take a mental snapshot of what the whole thing looks like. But when they are given the cipher, the likelihood of swapping cat for hat because it looks close enough is next to nothing. When your child has been explicitly taught to map the sounds to letters, well, the C in cat is a k sound, the A an A, and the T is a T, K, A, T. Any unfamiliar word is simply a new code to be unlocked. If you changed it to hat, it's a whole new word to unlock, the H, H, A, T. And they would easily spot the difference. So as you have no doubt concluded, the cipher is phonics. Now, do you remember me saying how advantageous it would be if high-frequency words became sight words? Well, you might be asking, if we're going to put all that memory work behind us, how are they going to store all those essential words in their heads now? Well, the answer is a method that is slightly slower, yet infinitely more dependable. Now, the first thing we want to do is to organize our high-frequency words. Now, teachers tend to gravitate to one of two very popular lists. One's called the Dolch list, and the other being the Fry list. Now, I've grown accustomed to using the Dolch list of 220 high-frequency words. They're very dependable. Now, there are some rule breakers on that list that really give phonics a run for their money. So yes, it is best to commit these to memory at face value. And your child should have no trouble with this. A word like said comes to mind, because very few words ever sound out the AI combination as a short vowel E sound. Now, you hear it most often as the long A sound, like in paid, braid, rain, brain, and so on. Now, the rest of our high-frequency words can be sorted in such a way that we can introduce them at the same time the sounds in those words are being taught. When the high-frequency word is pulled apart and blended back together using phonics enough times, that word has a greater chance of securing itself a permanent home in long-term memory. Well, think about it. There's a history of working with it on an intimate sound-by-sound level, and that might have been done through games and a lively lesson maybe taught by yours truly. The more interactive and multisensory the learning, the stronger the neural connection will be. Now we are building sight words that won't fade with time or be crowded out by trying to cram hundreds of other words in their heads week after week. One way to build confidence is to keep the reading material very simple and predictable at first. Now, this is why I prefer phonics readers over level readers. The problem with level readers is that you're pigeonholed in a system of scoring and levels. If your child can't reach blue level by a certain date, everyone is left feeling like a total failure. Who needs this drama? Also, the greatest reason to stay clear of level readers is the shameless liberties they take in the text. And that really drives me nuts. You'll see a sentence progression like, the dog. The big dog. The big dog is frightened. Frightened? Are you kidding me right now? Talk about setting a child up for failure. These people are carelessly throwing in words to give the story greater depth. But at what cost? If your child has not been taught to decode a more advanced word like frightened, they may resort back to asking you what the word is, and we've come full circle again with memorizing at face value. Now, compared to this popular shortcut, reading programs centered squarely on phonics skills might seem a little slow at first, but this foundation lays solid groundwork for confident, independent reading that will blow the doors off the flashy, instant reading results you think you're seeing when your child memorizes a handful of common words. Now, if for any reason you do come across a word where the sounds or spelling rules have not been taught or mastered yet, a brief explanation can reinforce that there are reliable solutions to cracking the code and that they will learn these soon enough. Now, here's a brief example. Say they're met with the word bike. They might read it as b-i-ke, bike. A quick explanation of the role that the E plays in the I saying its long vowel sound might be sufficient until the official lesson arrives. Now, besides organizing sight words in order in which the sounds in those words are taught, we can also group them together by common spelling. For instance, these two-letter words with a long E sound, like we, be, he, she, and me. Blending the sounds in those words is super simple, and a brief explanation about open-ended syllables might provide extra insight to help them remember why they're spelled that way. Now, some of those naughty little rule breakers start to surface when you introduce little words like to, and do that produce that long vowel oo sound, as opposed to the more cooperative long vowels in go, no, and so. So when should we start teaching sight words? Of course, assuming the bulk of those words are high-frequency words. Quick answer: immediately. You remember how I said it was most advantageous to teach these words as the sounds are being introduced? Well, if you start teaching popular letters like S, A, T, P, I, and N, they'll already be able to blend high-frequency words like at, in, an, and it. Even the short vowel ah sound is considered to be one of the most high-frequency words out there. Now throw in one of the very few troublemakers we have to memorize, like the word the, and we can begin forming simple sentences, and all we did was learn the sound of 6 letters. Isn't that awesome? So when you organize this properly, teaching your child to read becomes deceptively simple. So this is why I started this channel, to help conscientious parents just like you see that amid all that conflicting advice, all that noise out there, the crazy gimmicks and the shortcuts that go nowhere, there was one place that you can turn to, one place you can come, a place of trust, empathy, and support, where an early years teacher with over 20 years experience could share the methods and techniques that truly worked for me and brought me the immense joy and satisfaction of teaching over 600 children to form a lifelong love of reading. I want nothing more than for you to feel the same way. I still think parents make the best teachers, and that teaching your child to read is easier than you ever imagined. So stick around and I'll prove it to you. Now you can ask me any question you like, and any comments you leave are very important to me, and I'll promise to read them all. Please take a moment to view some of the options you have to better understand how your child is learning to read. I've left a few links in the description below. And among these helpful tools is a free reading assessment and a free course that gives you a wonderful overview of this incredible journey and so much more. In the meantime, hold on to that optimism, stay wonderful, and I'll see you next time.